screen, so that makes perfect sense. Okay, and I assume our camera is off, but you can see the slides, so we're great.
All right.
Let's see if this works now. Let's move forward. I think we're
Gotta
gonna have a
love
good time.
smooth beginnings.
Okay, so what we're gonna do today is we're gonna talk about our three threes, the three attitudes, the three intentions, and the three actions that we talk about when it comes to the power of moments. And
The first thing that I was wanted to kind of laugh about was that why would you think about hearing about sort of the power of moments and an HR concept from a company that probably is best known in our area for marketing and advertising? So we wanted to give you just a little bit of context about who we are, a little bit broader, so you understand how we even are playing in this space.
So we've been in business in Northern California, in the North Valley, for 18 years. We do business across the country, and we do marketing, advertising, and business consulting. And recently, we wrote a book that talks about the holistic approach to business and building what we call a passion and provision business. And that's basically saying to the people who say you either can make money or that you can enjoy work. And we say, no, you can actually do both. And so we did a lot of research, and we took a lot from our history, and we wrote this, and we're employers. We've been employing people in the North Valley for a very long time. And we realized that our team, our staff in a service-based business is super critical to us having a good brand reputation in the community, delivering high products, and making sure that our customer service is delivered well. And so we know that we need to keep our team and we need to educate our team. And we bring that experience of a really high retention rate in our company and the ability that because as consultants, we end up behind a lot of doors with a lot of senior leadership, and we see how a lot of companies are doing work. So we're bringing all of that to the table.
Absolutely.
Okay, 70%. Kathryn,
what is 70%?
what do we care
mean?
about 70%?
So one of the numbers that really bounces around our hearts and minds a lot as we talk about HR and we talk about jobs and working is this number 70%. And what this number represents is kind of the average results of a survey that Gallup does on a regular basis about employee engagement. And this particular stat tells us that 70% of your employees are typically disengaged in America. Right. So 70% of people who are coming to work are just kind of punching the clock, going through the motions. They're either just kind of bored and just trying to get through the day, or part of that number are people who are actively disengaged, who are actually sabotaging your company. So this is a really disturbing statistic when it comes to creating just good products, good services. It's really hard to do that if only 30% of the people on your team are actually contributing in a meaningful way.
And many of you have probably seen these kind of numbers and talked about them, but this radically goes to retention. And when we talk about employee retention, we're realizing also that there's a tremendous cost, and we'll talk about that in a minute. Today's goal, though, as we move forward, just so we have a clear picture on this, is to remind you, because many of you probably know this, of the power of moments to improve employee performance and increase retention. And so we're going to talk through this about what does it mean? How do you capture moments? How do we define moments? What does all that look like? So we can actually take that engagement number and increase the amount of people that are engaged and decrease that 70% of people who are disengaged. And so what does that look like? Let's move forward and see what happens. Well, let's talk about the impact of losing employees.
Yeah, the first thing to do is just kind of review here. And this is not news to you, but just to set the context for why it's important to think through creating really great experiences with employees is because of the impact of losing employees. So we see the impact in three areas. The first is morale, right? Frequent voluntary turnover has a negative impact on employee morale. It's just rough to be excited about going to work when the person next to you was there yesterday and is gone today. So those kinds of things are very, very challenging.
The next thing is productivity, and where retaining takes time, you lose efficiency. So retraining, I apologize. This is a big deal because what we're happening is when we all know this, when we're looking for good talent, especially in the North Valley right now with housing talking's hard, housing shortages and challenges that we have. We also we have multiple other things that we could talk about. that in today's world, it's like, okay, how do we get this great talent? So when we get them, how do we hold on to them? Because when we bring them in, there's that retraining time. It takes time. You lose efficiencies, mistakes happen. There's all kinds of stuff. So we lose morale, we lose productivity, and
And then ultimately there's the financial impact, right? So again, you're all in HR, so you know this already, but most studies on average say that every time a business replaces a salaried employee, it costs, you know, their annual salary up to double sometimes their annual salary to get them trained and up to snuff and ready to go. So even if they bring the skill sets, they don't know your culture, they don't know the way you do things. And so training those folks to function efficiently and effectively in your system, it just takes time. So again, it's very expensive. So
so
it's
we
much better to retain them.
So we do this because morale is an issue. We do this, we think about how do we retain people and how we're going to capitalize on the power of moments because of productivity issues and because of financial issues. But there's one more issue that is even more critical, and I think it resonates really well with people in the North Valley because we value our quality of life here, and that's just because people matter.
Yeah.
We do this because people matter. And then when we show that to people, we demonstrate that in actions and not just words. What we start to see is we start to see that people build a bond. From a marketing perspective, we look at customers often. But what is interesting is when we talk about brand in marketing, we talk about your reputation. And we talk about branding, we talk about bonding. Well, I'd like you to think about that in the context of your employees. Employees who leave and leave quickly or don't stick around at a company, a lot of times they're like, I'm not sure I was cared about. I'm not sure my opinion mattered. I wasn't treated fairly. I wasn't treated well. And often it's not a financial thing. Now, we all struggle with having to deal with how do we pay our employees enough and enough that they will stick around from a financial perspective. But oftentimes, it's because they haven't been demonstrated that they care enough. And so what happens in this whole context of employee retention, especially when it comes to the relational side and this power of moments, we're talking about how do we create better relationships, stronger bonds with our employees and our leadership so that they don't want to leave. They want to stay and they want to figure out how to stay.
So as we're talking about this concept of the power of the moment, power of moments, the first thing we want to do is just kind of philosophically establish what is actually happening when it comes to how people think and remember and process kind of just their lives in general. So we want to just spend a couple of minutes talking about how do people actually experience memory?
Because this is really important. And I know it may sound a little weird, but in a moment, you're going to connect this and you're going to see, if you don't already see it coming down the pike, how memory impacts this whole thing and how we think about moments. So the first thing we need to know is not all experiences or moments are equally important.
Absolutely.
What does that mean, Kathryn?
Okay, so here's a picture of our family. Yes, we're cute. We're super happy here. This is one of our favorite places on earth. And I'm going to appreciate the fact that it is not everyone's favorite place on earth, but it is absolutely our favorite place on earth. So, Disneyland, as you can see, the top left picture there is kind of the entryway. It's the first thing you see when you come into Disneyland. And then you go through this tunnel that says, here you leave today and enter the world of yesterday, tomorrow, and fantasy. And we always stop at that bridge and just think, oh, I'm so happy to be here.
And we always read this thing out loud
We
because
do.
this is my favorite sign. We actually bought keychains that have this on it. We're kind of nerdy about
Kind of
that.
nerdy. So we love Disneyland. We've got the castle. We've got, happy times. We've got pictures in front of fountains. We've got the end of the day when, yes, our feet hurt, but by golly, we're sitting at a table and we're ready to eat dinner and watch fireworks and just love Disneyland.
And we sit back and we look at these photos because these are our memories. This is what we think about. This is what makes us happy.
This is why we go back over and over again.
But then there's this. And this is a very real reality at Disneyland. And if you've been there, now there's an event going on and this is packed and everybody's standing in line and this happens in the evening for fireworks. And we've been there when there have been thousands and thousands, like tens of thousands of people.
2-hour wait lines and all that good
And
stuff.
it's, and then when it's hot and it's uncomfortable outside and everything else and people are hungry and you've already been going at it. And then you end up with these two in your family, the teenager who wants to go somewhere else and is like, I'm done with this, or the little one that's melting down.
Oh, the melting down little one. And even if you don't have a melting down little one, if you think hard and you've been in Disneyland, even if you're just with grown-ups, you have seen the melting down
I mean,
little one.
one of the last couple of times we were there, we
Oh,
saw one of these kids because that mother was going to make sure that kid went on Peter Pan,
no matter what.
and they're going to like it. And that kid did not want to go on
Oh,
Peter Pan, and we sat in
screamed at the
line,
top of his lungs for like a 45-minute wait.
and she allowed all of us around her to experience her child freaking out because, well, the memory was that important to her. And now we have a memory. We don't
But
we
but
don't take
what's
a pic, and it doesn't go in our
it doesn't go in our
pictures.
pictures. And here's the thing. When I think about going back to Disneyland, I don't think about that stuff.
No, I
I
don't.
think about the rides and the thrills and the smells and the fun of watching people and all of the real joys.
And so the point here is that we all do this, whether you like Disneyland or not. There are places in your life, there are moments and places you go where you remember the good things, and our memories are actually kind of designed to let the bad things, unless they're incredibly traumatic, the general bad things drift to the side and we forget. And oftentimes we'll subject ourselves to something again and we'll say, maybe, why do I keep doing this?
Right. Some of you are thinking to yourself that this happens sometimes when you go and visit family. You're like, this was amazing. This is great. And then you get there and you're like, oh my gosh, this is always hard. Why do I do
Why do I
this?
do this to myself?
Because memories and moments are not equally important. You don't remember
And
everything.
memories are tricky. So, which takes us to the second concept that we're going to talk about is peaks and potholes. Peaks and potholes. Kathryn?
So, one of the things that is true is that great experiences hinge on peak moments. And so we're going to be talking about how you create those peak moments in your business. But ultimately, the challenge that I think that we face, and especially HR professionals, is that we're trained to fix potholes, not create experiences. Now, what do I mean by that? A lot of us live in Chico, and you know that we have this in Chico, right? You can identify the streets in your mind automatically, where you're like, I just wish they would fix the pothole. And
I've
the
ruined two rims on my car because of these
Yes.
potholes.
Yes, we work on Rio Lindo Avenue, so it's a dicey one. But when the potholes get fixed, you Esplanade, Cohasset, I mean, it is beautiful driving down those roads now. What ends up happening is that we don't like drive down the road on a regular basis just going, "Oh my gosh, the potholes are fixed. This is the best ever." We just kind of think, "Okay, the pothole's fixed." We stop thinking about it. It's just the way things are supposed to work.
So here's what happens. We're all excited about the fact that we hate these potholes. Right now, Esplanade's great, but it fades quickly. It doesn't stay in our memory. And so what happens is going from, you look at that ugly picture on the left, that unhappy picture. That's where we are when we see a pothole. But when the pothole's fixed and you fix that problem in the environment, what ends up happening is you end up here in the middle.
Yep.
It's like, well, I don't think when I'm driving down a road without potholes, I'm not thinking, oh my gosh, I'm so glad this doesn't have potholes
I'm just driving.
for very long. I'm not underwhelmed. I'm not overwhelmed. I'm whelmed.
Just whelmed. And that's what happens in kind of in our companies is that we spend a lot of time fixing the issues and the problems, and people come to us and they say, HR director person, I have this challenge, this issue, and you fix that. And that's good because you got to fix potholes, that matters. But ultimately, when we spend all of our time fixing potholes, we end up with a group of employees who are whelmed.
Whelmed.
They're just
And what
whelmed.
we want them to be is here. We want them
Yes.
to be happy. We want them to be excited because this is where bonding happens. This is where we were talking about earlier. An employee is going to go, I love it here. This is such a positive experience. So what we find in moments is that what used to be known for a very long time, let's celebrate the big things, and then sometimes gets lost in companies or our business. We need to be looking at these peak moments. The peak moments are the ones that you want to focus on. Yes, we need to fix the major problems. If we have major problems that are causing a lot of pain, we want to get rid of those. But those aren't going to be why people stick around in our companies. Those aren't going to be why we get great retention rates. It's going to be that we're getting rid of the potholes and then we're creating and celebrating these kinds of moments. So what moments matter? If we're talking about moments now, what moments matter? Well, guess what? The very first day somebody starts is an opportunity to take advantage of a moment. Moments, we have this thing we call first mental images. The brain, the first time we introduce somebody to somebody, they have a mental image. First time you go to an experience, that first thing you experience is going to be at that event, at that thing, the way you walk in the door. This is a big deal. And the first day at work is a window for you to do this.
So think about this. Many, many times, first day of work is you come in, you sit down at your computer, and essentially it's you need to read the HR manual. You need to understand how our company works. I want you to read all this documentation. You need to sign all this paperwork. We're going to give you a little tour of the company. But there's these very like sort of procedural things. And it's not that they don't have to happen, but we'd like to suggest that you might want to add a few things to the first day if that's currently your routine. So, for example, if somebody were to come and the very first day of work, they sit down at their desk and there's a big welcome sign. And people have like written a card and begun to introduce them to just the fact that this is a great place to work and we're super excited to have you.
Mm-hmm.
And what if part of your first day of work is the opportunity for them to interact with the CEO or their core manager and really learn about the vision of the company and what it is that you're trying to achieve and how their role fits into that particular vision. So you're creating this experience at the very beginning of their employment that makes them go, oh my gosh, I'm so excited I chose to work here.
And a peak moment, again, peak moments, these are these things that are unique and they're special. And you don't get another first day and you don't get another first week with an employee. And so this is an opportunity that you can really leverage into memory. Like, wow, this is how my thing started, which again this is what they'll remember. They'll remember the great moments you make. They won't remember all the potholes you fill, and they may remember some of the things that are horrible, but a lot of the bad things, like the Disneyland example, the reason we showed you that is because a lot of the bad days will be covered up in the memory when we make these great moments.
Yeah.
So we start with that. Another obvious one is birthdays. And in our company, now, I think it's fair to say, I just realized there is a book called Power of Moments by the Heath brothers.
Absolutely.
We didn't put it in the slide presentation. I made an assumption that everybody was aware that there was a book out there on this.
We didn't just invent this
We just
concept.
didn't invent this concept.
There's very smart people who do this.
And we've been doing this for years, and we actually use this book as a tool in our office to have a book study and to kind of tune us up and give us ideas because we've been doing these things for years. And it's amazing the bonding. So birthdays are obvious. First days, birthdays.
Well, and the cool thing about birthdays, well, first of all, I'm just going to tell you this story. I went to my bank the other day, and I will not identify the bank, but I went to the bank and I'm sitting there and I'm in line and then I'm up at the teller, and somebody walks in with flowers and they take them over to this other person and they set the flowers down. And I looked at the guy in front of me and I said, "Is it her birthday?" And his response was, "Shoot, I hope not." Well, it was her birthday, and nobody in the building knew.
As soon as Kathryn leaves the teller, she yells across at the gal in the bank because she knows this teller.
"Is it your birthday?" And she says, "Yes." And I'm like, "Well, happy birthday." So that was not probably the way that I would want her to experience her birthday if she worked for me. I would want her to experience an intentional plan to celebrate that.
Like, who cares about it? What's the deal? What is neat about that? Okay, so that's one. Birthdays, special life events. I mean, we have at Half a Bubble Out, we have babies that have been born to employees.
Mm-hmm.
The company didn't birth a baby, but our employees
But the first
did.
one we called our bubble baby because,
And then the second one we called the second
bubble
bubble baby. And we have celebrated those things. We have pictures around. These are big deals. And when it's, when there's moments where these kids are coming into our staff's lives and their families are changing and stuff, These are phenomenal window moments to say, hey, I'm really excited that you had a kid. 6 months later doesn't kick it. It
Mhm.
just doesn't help. But in the midst of those moments, and then what it does is it builds memories. And those memories for us, those really positive memories, those special memories continue to grow. And while our first bubble baby doesn't remember that, as she's gotten older, we've done special things to help her and the other kids remember
Yeah. So
moments.
we threw our employee a shower, for example, and we got specific gifts and blessed her in that way. So that was really, really fun, and it's very memorable.
And
So
for any men listening, this is something men can be involved in too, because you, it's not just a girl thing, okay? So like those types of things.
yeah.
So special life events, and some of those life events have been funerals, memorials, and deaths, because when we're doing life with people and we're working with them, there's the great moments of births and celebrations and weddings. But there's these things that happen in life too, where we lose family members, and how we respond in those moments. Even though they're not exciting, wonderful, gosh, I want to remember that. They're so significant in our lives, and they have such emotion attached to them that they do lodge in our memory. And everybody could say, "Here, we're sorry for your loss," and move on, and those employees will know that somebody cared. But when you have a moment, you have a window to actually, because people matter, to touch them even more. And I know that there are at least probably 3 or 4 people on our staff today that can speak about this, and they talk about it in the fact that they know that they were loved and cared for. They know that at work, somebody really cared in the midst of their grief and their pain. And we've experienced it because we've lost people and watched our staff actually mirror back that kind of care and really comfort us. And when those kind of things happen, this sounds almost manipulative, and it's not meant to be, but we're talking about retention today, folks. And these are ways you can really leverage intention, because it's in these moments of experience that you can actually increase the bonding in a positive way. And that encourages them to stick around.
Another thing, and I don't think we have it on the slideshow, but we talked. Michael mentioned a minute ago about first mental image and this first mental image concept, and there's an FMI, LMI. But one of the things
Okay,
that
just
you
so
would
really quick, you're just flying through
just
that. FMI means is
first mental image
it's lingo we
lingo.
use. FMI is first mental image, LMI is last mental image, and we use it in events when I say hello to people and when I say goodbye to people at a party. They're remembering those things, and a lot of other stuff falls into a trough.
Yes. And so I bring that up because one of the things that we do, and again, the examples of what we do, you have to adapt for your work, your core, your group, but we have our in terms of FMI and LMI, even in a weekly basis here at the office, we do a Monday morning meeting, which a lot of companies do. But one thing that we do that's a little bit weird that most people go, what the heck, is 4 to 5 p.m. every Friday, we have this thing we call wrap. And wrap is what we would identify as our last mental image of the week. It is an hour where we pay our staff to eat, drink, and be merry, and we're not working. We're just talking about life. It is where we sometimes celebrate these special moments when those are happening, but we have it every week, whether or not there is a specific event.
And it's meant to be a time where we're down, we're not engaged in work, but everybody's required to go to wrap. Wrap is you're on the clock.
They don't usually mind.
Nobody has complained yet about having to work. I wondered actually if we would have some people early on, but we've been doing wrap now for over 9 years. And one day years ago, a couple of years into it, I thought this was a waste of time. And
And productivity.
and well, I mean, if you're going to be investing in something, you want to make sure that it has value. And if you're going to be investing in something that's creating moments and investing in the morale, you want it to pay off. And I was thinking, okay, all right, I want to help, but if this doesn't matter to anybody, we are wasting money, because it's not providing what we want, and it's taking away from what we need. So,
So Michael decided to sit down with the staff during one wrap and ask the question, has this run its course? Do we need to not do this anymore?
because there was apathy, I thought I was seeing or sensing some apathy amongst our staff.
Yes, and the memorable response, which was a peak moment for us,
Oh my
from
gosh.
one of our staff.
That's I mean she moved on several years ago, started a family, moved to another city, but we
We
still
still talk about this.
um, fondly remember her and talk about her and talk
Yeah.
about this moment.
So what she said in response to Michael was she had this look on her face. She was just aghast, and she said, "Cancel rap? That's like canceling Christmas." And we just lost it. We just started laughing because clearly it was making a difference. It mattered. They were connecting. They liked it. So even on, Fridays where it's not as exciting as other Fridays, we still do it. So that's rap.
That's rap. And it is huge for that value. It is a moment. It just happens to be every moment of every last Friday of the week, and we go from there. Then we talk about final days,
Which is a weird thing to talk about during employee retention. However,
and we're talking about the final days. A final day of your employee would have at your company. This is really weird. Why do we talk about this?
I think obviously when we talked about reputation and branding and bonding, the impression that people have with you, people, no matter how hard you work, no matter how many great moments you create, people are going to at some point probably move on. They get married, they move, they get
Things
lured
happen.
away by another company that can pay them 5 times what you can pay them, and there's nothing you can do about it. I mean, there are those things that happen, but how you send them out says a great deal not only to them but to the rest of your employees.
Oh boy, does it. And we're talking about, we're not talking about the people that you have to send on. We're talking,
That you're inviting them
you're
to move
inviting
along.
to move on, and thank you very much for being here. Your services are no longer needed. We're talking about folks that either we've coached into a place of realizing this isn't the best fit for them, and we're not the best fit for them. But also, we're talking about people who get these opportunities, whether we like it or not, whether we're hurt or not because we thought they were going to stick around longer. All those have happened to us. But what we're talking about is, and what we're talking about is making sure that all those people, sans the people that we had to let go for a specific disciplinary reason or something, these are the people we honor because everybody's looking, everybody's watching. And there are moments, the memorials and deaths are a part of that. In our most difficult moments, people are watching us as leaders. People are watching and taking in opportunities. And when we have these moments to honor people and say, thank you for your service, we so appreciate you. It's different than, Bob was there last week, but he's gone now. Did anybody know what happened to him? I was on vacation. Oh yeah, well, I don't know. He just he stopped coming to work. One day he said, I'm leaving tomorrow, and that was it. And we came in the next day and he wasn't there. Okay, that's just part of the machine. You're teaching your people in those situations that these people are just cogs in the wheel. And retention, that bonding, doesn't happen when people think they're just irreplaceable, because sometimes in their own preservation, they go, well, I have an opportunity to jump over there, and because I'm not needed here, why would I stay? And so this final day it's really weird. It takes discipline. It's a bit challenging for us to do because a lot of times we're doing it in our disappointment or our own grief. But it's a really great opportunity. It's a window. It's
It's a moment.
it's your LMI moment.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's move on now to the next.
So of course, so the previous slide was really about moments in an individual's life, right? So this is your employee experiencing their life, and there's moments that you can really impact them personally. But then there's also just the reality of how do we recognize successes on the job? So how do we tell people you're doing an amazing job? How do we make sure that they know that we value them? So there are 100 ways to do it. I mean, one of my favorite bosses before because, of course I work with my husband now, but one of my favorite bosses prior to that, when I was working at it, some of you will remember SunGuard or Bytech. He used to write me notes. Like he would do handwritten notes that just say, hey, I know you pulled an all-nighter getting that proposal together last night, and I just want you to know how much I appreciate you. And those things were super powerful for me. That wasn't public recognition. That was personal recognition, but it was really, really powerful.
We do a lot of work on public recognition, and we have a whole training on public recognition. But really, the strength here is we want to go. These are ways. These are the little moments. You're looking for something that a staff member, an employee did that just was a little above and beyond, just special. Sometimes it's as simple as you caught them just having extra care and concern to help out somebody when they didn't need to. They were generous or they were thoughtful. Just sometimes saying please in a moment when everybody is stressed, or staying calm when everybody is just really under the gun and under pressure. We get to say those things, and they are windows, because here's the trick on public recognition. You may know this, but first of all, you need to have the rest of the trust from just being a good, healthy place to work, or this can be empty. And then from there, being very specific. The one of the things on these moments that really gets is great is, no, we're not saying that you're a great employee. We're saying you were a great employee last Thursday
When you
when
did
you did
this.
X. I want you to know I noticed. Thank you very much. Hey, I'd like to buy you coffee. Here's a $5 Starbucks coffee card. Sometimes it's little things like that. But when you're specific and in the appropriate way, you do it in front of other employees and applaud them. What they get is they get the recognition, and then they get the reinforcement that somebody that's a superior in the company, a leader, tells everybody else around them that they're valued. And there's a lot of different dynamics that go into this. So public recognition, those are great opportunities because they're a catalyst, we say here, because they multiply the effects and actually create more efficiency, more effectiveness in work, and greater bonding and retention.
Yeah. And the more you can do it, again, as Michael said, not just big, big things, but the little things can become extraordinarily powerful.
Okay, so let's walk through the three attitudes, three intentions, and three actions, because I think a lot of those stories help us wrap our brains around it. But let's switch gears a little bit and do some fairly quick. Here's some tangible things that I want you to have. You can take notes on this. You can catch these 9 things, and if you are paying attention to our 3 threes, then you've got a strategy to help you stay focused and not let these things drop. Because in a crazy world, including a day like today, where we're on election day, thank you for showing up on election day. We still don't
We're in
know.
the middle of 2020, which has been a crazy year
We still
anyway.
don't know at this moment exactly who our next president's going to be. At least when we started this webinar, we didn't
We
know.
didn't
And
know.
I'm not paying attention to the feeds at the moment. And on top of it, we've got COVID. We're in the middle of 2020, and there's so many things that, like, when people go home, or you have to put people on different crews, and all of a sudden your normal routine is disrupted. Things can just fall between the cracks, and especially these ability to take advantage of these moments. And we also have to be super creative. So let's look at these real quick. 3 attitudes. Attitudes change everything.
Yep. So the first attitude is thankfulness. So we just want to be able to say, you know what, as you are leading your employees, as you are managing HR, as you are talking with them and interacting with them, stay thankful for the fact that you get to do this. Stay thankful for the fact that they're here,
Yeah.
that people are working, that they're showing up. Just this attitude of thankfulness is a big, big deal. And I have this plaque on my desk that says there's always something to be thankful for. So being thankful is really critical.
Okay, the second attitude, celebration. We've talked about that a lot. You've seen that in the illustrations the stories we've shared this morning. But you want to remember that celebrate the moments, find moments to celebrate. And those are critical because those are little windows where the curtain opens, great opportunity, and then the curtain closes. So let's celebrate. And then the third one is praise. So these 3 attitudes, thankfulness, celebration, and praise.
Yeah, if you as an HR director or you're working in HR, if you have these 3 attitudes of thankfulness, celebration, and praise, and you model those things, You are full of gratitude. You are looking. You kind of have an attitude of celebration. Like, what do we get to celebrate today, people? Like, what's going well? And then you're quick to praise. Those three attitudes are going to take you an incredibly long way in creating really good experiences and moments for your people.
And these are things that you can be training middle managers, directors, anybody, so that they're working with their small group. Because as a company grows and scales, one person can't do this anyway. The CEO can't do it, just not an HR manager. But you need to bring the team together and teach your team and train them. These are important things. So then let's move to the 3 intentions. So the first intention is pay attention. What do we mean by pay attention?
So pay attention is the art of looking for the moments, right? So it's anything from the simple things of let's make sure we have a list of everybody's birthday. And let's think about how it is that we can celebrate them. One of the things we do with people's birthdays is we've discovered what their favorite dessert is, and we get that, right? So things like that. But
Or
pay
I mean,
attention.
for us, I mean, we've got folks that are dairy free and gluten free.
Gluten-free. Yes, that's
These are things you can pay attention to because they say you care. They're little things. I mean, when we get cookies and we have a gluten free cookie or a couple of gluten free cookies for folks that are gluten free, it says they care, as opposed to in some situations people feel always out, kind of left out, and nobody cares. This pay attention, the enemy to this is busyness,
yeah.
right? You just get busy, you get overwhelmed with all the things you have to do, and the urgent and important take priority over the urgent not important. And if you understand that language,
Or the important, not urgent.
the important, not urgent. Yes. Thank you very much. And the
Yes.
important, not urgent is real critical because you can get a lot of leverage there. All right. That's a whole nother training. Be proactive.
Yeah. Just again, it's probably another way of saying pay attention, but it's also like make a plan.
Yeah, don't be last minute.
Don't-
It'll catch you off guard. So you're paying attention. When you're paying attention, you're looking for opportunities. When you're being proactive, you're planning, because this will go much better. And you'll also be able to train people with being proactive, train others to help you out in the midst of this. And then thirdly, concisely decide,
Consciously.
consciously decide to leverage the power of moments. So you're going to pay attention, you're going to be proactive. And maybe this third one should have been really in the front, is you want to consciously decide you're going to do this. Do you want to leverage these moments? Do you want to take advantage of moments that are already happening in your employees' lives, in your company's lifespan? Do you want to take advantage of those moments that don't cost you, you don't have to create them. They're already happening. So decide to do that. All right. Then we go into 3 actions. You want to take action. And with that, you're identifying.
So the first thing is, just identify what you're already doing that could be leveraged more intentionally. So you're thinking, we celebrate birthdays. We do this. We get a birthday card. We, whatever. What are you already doing that you could make more intentional and make more celebratory or more interesting or more memorable for people? So identify what you're already doing that could be leveraged with more intention.
The next, choose one thing to focus on. Don't get overwhelmed. If you're not doing this right now, or you used to do it, or it has fallen off your plate because of everything this year and with COVID and all that, just choose one thing. If you're already doing this and you're already a rock star at this, but you want to take your game up to another level, again, choose one thing. And as you're coaching others around you that may not have this mindset yet, give them one thing. It's the power of just focusing on that and not trying to do 3 or 4 or 5, even taking one of our ideas and going with that.
Yeah.
And then finally, assign people. Oh, this is huge. I don't care how big your company is or how small it is. Maybe even more powerful in a small company, but for us, assigning somebody has been absolutely critical.
So you may or may not be a person yourself who is sort of gifted to coordinate, or but when you find a person who like that is their love language is party planning and gifts and food prep, and when you need a card, they're the person who finds the perfect card because they remember things that happen in that employee's life and they find something and it's relevant. All of those things. If you have a person or people that you can assign who are gifted to do this, then it just makes it, first of all, your team gets involved. You're not just responsible for making it all happen, which should be a bit of a relief. But it also means that when those moments are created, they become that much more powerful because these people are designed to do that and celebrate well. So assign people who are absolutely gifted to coordinate. And then there's a bonus, by the way, that we didn't put on the slide. So what's the bonus, Michael?
I don't remember.
The bonus is fund it.
Oh,
Okay,
yes.
so if you're going to say, yes, we're going to create intentional celebrations, yes, we're going to do this, you have to actually decide that it's going to be a line item in your budget. You have to get commitment from senior leadership that, yes, it is worth spending this line item, this cash, in order to make sure that these moments happen. Because if you assign people who are gifted to coordinate and then they have this great idea of a way to celebrate something and then you say, I'm sorry, we're not going to pay for that, that's going to be very sad. So
Yeah.
set a budget, make sure they understand, and fund it.
Absolutely critical. And then there's a lot of pressure. When you have those gifted people and you give them the authority and the permission to go use their gifts, to go celebrate people and do this, and you've taught them structure or pulled out, put a book study together and do what we did and get your key team together of people in the company who maybe this is not what they do, their main job. Maybe this is only what they do like for a half hour a week or an hour a week. But you bring those people together and go through a book study on the power of moments, it'd be amazing. All right. So we go from there and just recapping, we've got 3 attitudes, 3 intentions, and 3 actions that you can take that will help you focus on this entire process of the power of moments. Okay. Because as we started out today, we wanted to remind you and encourage you of the power of moments to improve employee performance and increase retention. And we wanted to encourage you to act. This was the point of today, the process. And we do it because people matter. We do it because we want the retention to be there. We want people to be more effective in our companies because we have to be profitable and have a good margin to employ more people to be successful in company. That's very important, but it's because people matter. And when we marry those two together, we do an amazing amount of good in the world. So with that said, we kind of reached the place where we're ready to have some questions. So please, if you have any questions, let us know. You can put them in the chat or you can actually put them in the Q&A section. And there's a Q&A section down below on your main screen if you're not used to it. It says Q&A with a couple of little boxes that you might find on a cartoon. And there's places where you can put questions there. All right. Any questions? So one of the questions that I know happens often is that you're like, okay, well, what do you do if a senior leader isn't ready to do something like this? If they don't want to be involved? Well, if they don't want to be involved, they don't see the value of it, then one of the things you can do is get The Power of Moments. It's a great book, but there's a couple of chapters in here that really talk about why it matters in business. Another great book out there that will talk about the power of encouragement and reinforcement is called The Carrot Principle. It's a book about 10 years, 12 years old. And it's a phenomenal book. And then there are great statistics. Gallup has also a lot of those resources. All right. Another question.
Either we were so clear or
there are no questions.
it won't let me submit on Q&A maybe. Okay.
Because I'm a panelist, in any case, for making changes to the final moment when someone leaves or is let go, what is a good first step? So let me say this. If you're having troubles in the Q&A session part of it, use the chat itself and we can put, and you're more than free to put those in there. I think that would be great. So let's start with this. So the titles of the books, again, that I just shared were The Power of Moments by Chip and Dan Heath, Power of Moments. And then the other book was called The Carrot Principle. I can't remember the author right now.
Yep,
It's in our library and we reference it a lot. And it's a great one on employee engagement. And really the whole book talks about the power of
the public
public
recognition. Yeah.
recognition. And it gives you some great statistics. It was based on a 10-year long study. And so if you're looking at that, those are really helpful. Do you have any good suggestions for encouraging and celebrating introverts?
That's a great
Oh, we
question.
do.
Yeah.
Okay, so one of the things that you'll hear stories that you'll read about, and one of the stories we read somewhere was a company that had a salesperson who was, strangely enough, a salesperson who was an introvert, but they didn't want to be recognized in front of the group. But they got recognized because they were always killing it. And what happened in this environment was that the CEO found out what that individual liked the most. Turns out he was married and had 2 kids and he loved his daughters. And so what they did is they actually, instead of saying, "Hey, you did a great job. You were great. You're amazing,"
Here's
which
this
the
trophy.
introvert didn't like, they got a painting done of his 2 daughters and presented it to him. And he went from being really frustrated for 2 years, the way he's being honored, to that. Now, another thing you can do is you can be real low key. Don't give them a big recognition in front of everybody, but they love people have their own languages and gift giving or words or something. And an introvert might appreciate a note. They might appreciate a small gift given to them. But if you can find a way to be low key in front of a few of their employees and do something very appropriate, by the way, Bob or Susie did this great thing and I was really appreciative, and you get off them really quick, we found those work really well for introverts.
Yep.
So there's some ideas there.
For sure.
Okay.
So for making changes to the final moment when someone leaves or is let go, what is a good first step?
Kathryn?
That's a really, really good question. So the first step is, for me, is always to pause and remember what it is that I have appreciated about them, so I can be very, very articulate. Because ultimately, a good first step really is, as they're leaving, if you're able to speak words of affirmation over them and to let them know that even though they're moving on, that you value them and you've appreciated them and you can honor them. That's probably, if nothing else, that is a really, really good first step.
Yeah, I think absolutely. It's test. And you may not always get it right, but there's a lot of value just in the intention, as long as you have a good heart for that. All right, other questions? We have those books. Introverts. Any other questions? One of the questions that we've seen before is that how much do we put aside, especially with our wrap? We invest in wrap $50 a week at the most, and that's for us, $200 a month is an incredibly easy investment for something we have seen is super, super valuable every week.
If you have 300 employees, that might not work.
It may not work, but what I'll tell you is that when budget, you start to look at how do you set those things apart. So when it comes to 300 employees, one of the things that used to happen out at Bitech, SunGard, when there was over 250 employees, one of the things that one of the owners did, Judy would do is, and I always wanted to be there for this day, she would go when Dairy Queen used to be open and she would get dilly bars.
Yes, the dilly bar day.
Dilly bar
days were great.
And when you're thinking about it, when you're thinking about price and money, one of the things that I like to say is not so much how much it is, but how much, like, first of all, the first question I ask leaders is, how much is that kind of retention worth? What's it worth to you? And how much do you value your employees? And then how much is a fair amount of money every week to invest in them? When you're looking at that, like, maybe every other Friday or once a month, desserts were showing up at Bitech for 300 people, 300 dilly bars, 300 pieces of cheesecake. Three, I mean, you're looking at these things, but what starts to happen is you start going, well, I paid $1.50 for a person. And I think as a CEO, those are things that you start to look at going, it's an incredible investment. Because if I were to invest, you know, $50 a year in a good employee or $100 a year in a good employee in those kind of events, then I just multiply that times my people. Now it could become a large line item in your budget. But again, I always go back to the leaders. If you're having problems talking to them, I say, okay, so what's the salary of this person? Let's multiply that times one. That's the amount. We're going to be conservative. You're going to lose that amount of money in trying to retrain somebody. It's going to cost you that to retrain them and hire somebody else for that. So what's it worth for you to keep that person? I think that's really valuable and that's helpful. Okay. All right. Any more questions? Any more questions? We love questions. What was the titles of those books? Do you have any good questions or suggestions? All right. I want to come back and we're going to stop sharing. We're going to bring up our camera and we're going to say thank you so much for joining us today. We're at the end of our time. We hope this was valuable. We hope that you think about the power of moments and bring them to your company. Or if you're already doing it, we hope that this is just a good reminder in the middle of a COVID world and all the craziness we're experiencing, because one of the things that we love most as far as a definition of leadership, and you are leaders watching this, we assume, that a leader is self-defined with a non-anxious presence. Self-defined with a non-anxious presence. That means that you're bringing peace where you go and you're like, I'm calm. We've got this under control. And those type of things are incredible as you go around because they create moments of themselves. When everybody else is stressed and frustrated and everything else, can you be that extra peace to them and extra calm? Encourage them with a smile. Stressed out people don't smile. They need smiles. They need those little encouragements. They need those, well done, pat on the shoulders types of things. And these power of moments can be those things that you can use to really encourage them, bring a sense of value and bonding, and increase retention and efficiency. Kathryn, do you want to say anything else?
We just really, really do appreciate you being here and hope that it has been helpful. We have a saying in our company that help is not help unless it's perceived as help. So we hope that some of the ideas and suggestions we've put in front of you today are helpful and that you're just reinvigorated to be intentional about how you care for your people, because the people of the North State are good people, and we love when they stick around and keep working for us. And so we just are really appreciative that you joined us. Thank you.
For those of you who are watching on another time, I hope you enjoy it. Please have a great week. Have a great rest of the year, and let's continue to do some great things, finding moments to celebrate people. Take care.